common sense to provide a safe, separate space for both men and women with locker rooms, showers, restrooms, prisons, and domestic violence shelters.
Hello, my name is Shiloh Satterfield.
Hi, my name is Shiloh, and I'm 10 years old and in the 4th grade.
My father took me to the Texas Capitol, and there I testified petitioning for safety and privacy for girls and women in restrooms. And yet, here I am, 8 years later, still fighting for the exact same thing. How could it make sense for a grown man, a complete stranger, to be allowed into a space meant to protect women?
It was an inescapable nightmare because it was not only was I having to compete against a man, and I lost, by the way, but I was having to enter the locker room, which would be my private, safe space, and know at any point a man was explicitly allowed to change there.
And then I hear a man's voice compliment my hair, and I was taken aback, and I turned around, and it was a man, and it was unfortunately fairly obvious that it was a man. And
being forced to undress next to a man who is fully naked, fully intact, fully exposing himself, inches away from where we were simultaneously fully undressed as women. It was violating, it was demeaning, it was degrading, it felt like just utter betrayal, really.
The Texas Women's Privacy Act, Senate Bill 8 by Senator Middleton, has passed out of the House Committee on State Affairs. This is history.
I'm about to sign a law that says no men in women's restrooms. This is just common sense.
This is not California. This is the great state of Texas.
We've got our own Mary Elizabeth Castle and our great panel. So please give it up for our awesome Mary Elizabeth Castle.
Do I call them up? Okay. All right, I would just like to welcome up our great panelists, Brooke Slusser, Kim Slusser, and Senator Mays Middleton. All right, we affectionately call this panel A Mother and Daughter's Perspective, the Texas Women's Privacy Act, because as we'll talk about later this afternoon, the stories of how women and girls are affected by the issues today of having their private spaces invaded is really the impetus is what pushes legislation and needs to be heard. As you're aware, we have some excellent news, so we wanted to start the panel with that. And as you saw in the video, on Monday, Governor Greg Abbott signed into law Senate Bill 8, the Texas Women's Privacy Act. And so many of you know this is a long time coming. This has been a known fight in the state of Texas almost since 2017. And I don't know if you can even imagine or fathom that for that long of period of time, you could go into a restroom, a locker room at a gym, even a changing room at a store, and have a male walk in that space. But we finally said no more in the state of Texas. We're going to bring back common sense. We're going to define male and female like we discussed yesterday, and we're going to make sure women and girls are protected in the state of Texas. But now let's get into the real stories, because we know that so many have been affected by this issue. The other side will tell you it doesn't happen, or these stories aren't real, but we have real life proof that women have been affected by this issue. So Brooke, I want to start with you. There have been a lot of athletes involved in this issue of women's privacy and protecting women's sports. Like we saw Riley Gaines. We'll have Paula Scanlon come later today. But we're so glad we have a true hero in the state of Texas, our very own, who's standing up for women and girls in our state. But some people do not know your story. So tell us about your sports background.
So I grew up playing volleyball my entire life. I started, I think, at the age of like 10, I would say. And I started playing club volleyball, and I was on the top team in the nation from 12s to 18s at a club called TAV, and committed to the University of Alabama when I was 14 years old, I'm pretty sure. So went on, had a great career there, first 2 years of college, and really just ended up losing the love for the game while I was at that university. So I decided to enter the transfer portal just genuinely to find the love for the game again. I mean, that's why we're all doing it. That's why anyone should be doing it. And so I entered the transfer portal going into my junior year of college, and that's when I decided to commit to the San Jose State University in California.
Yeah, very good. So Kim, how was it, watching Brooke grow up and just watching her love of sports? Can you talk about that, as a mom, watching your daughter just become an excellent athlete and just love what she does?
Yes. Watching Brooke grow and become successful as an athlete has been exciting and inspiring for both me and my husband. Early on in her life, it was very clear that she had something special. When Brooke was about 10 years old, we were at a kid's birthday party. And one of the grandparents, who was a high school basketball coach at the time, pulled my husband aside and said to him, "I could take Brooke and go win state with that girl," telling Paul how much leadership and athletic potential he saw in her. That statement really stuck with us over the years because he saw something early on that we hadn't quite seen yet in her. As she moved from rec volleyball to club volleyball to high school volleyball, her natural leadership really started to stand out, especially with her high school teammates. They always looked up to her for leadership on the court. For guidance and direction, she took on that leadership role and ran with it. If something was going wrong in a high school game, Brooke was always the one to stop, pull the team together in a huddle, calm them down, and help them push through. Then watching her move on to collegiate D1 volleyball and receive a full scholarship to the University of Alabama was just the icing on the cake. We couldn't have possibly been more proud of her. Brooke's character and determination on the court turned her into a respected setter and team cornerstone that throughout her collegiate career. But the one thing that I'm most proud of her for is her faith in Jesus Christ and committing her life to him.
No, that's excellent. So you saw those leadership skills in Brooke even early on before she got involved in this issue. That's great. Now, Senator Middleton, people know you for the Save Women's Sports Act, and they know you as the author of the bill, and they know you, running for office as a senator. Maybe they know you for killing alligators, as I saw on your social media yesterday. But
drain the swamp.
Yeah. But maybe people don't really know your personal connection to the issue. Can you talk about that?
Well, look, I think this is always rooted in my faith. And you think about the spiritual battle that we're truly in right now. I will never be able to draw within myself the strength that I need to win that on behalf of the state. It only comes from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And we are saved by grace through faith alone. And think of this issue as well, where, in 2021, it was the Save Girls Sports Act. And I was chairman of the Freedom Caucus at the time. And something happened that year that was very important. Macy and I had our daughter, Martha Ann. And man, if that's not your daily reminder of what we're fighting for here, and at that time, just thinking as a dad, as a husband, and then about my mother as well, who used to compete running marathons, just how fundamentally unfair it was for men pretending to be women, right? These are men pretending to be women to steal fairness, to steal opportunity, to steal hard-earned spots on teams. And it's totally flipped on its head. The left was fighting to steal fairness from women, from actual women, not the men pretending to be women that they were rewarding. And the crazy part about all this, is that they were saying that actual women are the oppressors and men pretending to be women are the victims. And just to see that fight and how important this is to win, because this is common sense. This is common sense. This is about making sure that Texas is the safest state in America to live and raise a family. And we're never going to achieve that goal as long as we're allowing these delusions of the left. And we're not bending to the delusions of the left where we're going to let men pretend to be women.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Now, Brooke, you were having a great time, doing what you love, what you excel in, being a great athlete, but something changed in college. So can you tell us what happened? And also tell us about what you stumbled upon in a bathroom at a hotel one time.
So, like I said, I committed to San Jose State University going into my junior year of college. And all I was searching for was just a coaching staff that could care for me outside of the sport, just be able to let me live my life, find happiness in the sport again, but also outside of it. And so coming to San Jose State, I thought I'd found that, and I think I did for the first few months. The coaches allowed me to really just be laid back. Like, I did my job in the gym, and then I was able to have that free time outside of it to go do the things that I enjoyed. And it wasn't until a few months in, I noticed that I was getting roomed with the same person on our team on travel trips over and over again. And when you're a new transfer at a school, usually they room you with different people every single away trip just to get you bonded with new people. You're the new girl on the team. And I was getting put with the same person every single time, who I was also living with in an apartment on campus too. And there was one day, this player on my team would always go in the bathroom, lock the door, and get ready for the game. And I always found that sort of odd, but all the power to you to do whatever you want. And this player had run out to grab something, and I needed something in the bathroom real quick. So I'd run in to grab, I think it was like my mascara or something. And this player's backpack was open in the bathroom, and I looked down, and there was something that looked like a gauze kit, and it said tuck kit on it. And I was so confused. And also being a new player on this team, I wasn't really gonna ask questions. I'd already had suspicions of how high of a level this player was at with jumping wise, strength, speed, was above anything I'd ever seen. And I'd played at the highest level you could get to at this point. I vividly remember calling my parents after the first day of practice, and I was saying, this person shouldn't be at San Jose State. This person is a lot better than this level of volleyball. So going on, I kind of kept it to myself. Again, being the newer girl on the team, I didn't want to ruffle anyone's feathers. And if I was wrong, I didn't want to step out of line and then everyone just hate me for it. And so I kind of just went on with my life. I kind of pushed it to the back of my head. And that's when I start to hear the rumors go around school of there's a man on the volleyball team, and referring to this player as he and a man and all of these things. And so that's when I asked one of these basketball players, I was in the car when they were talking about it, and I was like, what are you talking about? Why are you referring to Blair as a he? And they looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, you don't know? And I was like, no, what? And that's when they told me, Blair is a man. And Blair transferred here from North Carolina school because he got kicked out of that school for being a man, and they changed their state laws allowing men and women's sports. All to Peyton McNabb's power and what she did there. But I really think after finding that out, again, I pushed it to the back of my head. I didn't tell my parents, my family. I didn't know how to handle this situation. I mean, who does? Who's ever been put in a situation like that before? I was living with this man at the time with two of my other teammates, and my coaches had pushed me to live with them. They'd said that they thought I would get along the best with these girls on the team and that I should move in with them so I don't have to live alone as a transfer student. So I'm stuck here with the kind of this being pushed to the back of my head. Blair had gotten hurt my junior year, so I was like, okay, I can just play this season. I don't really have to worry about it. He's up in the stands every practice, and I can just kind of do my thing. And I genuinely think I forgot about it for a while. I mean, I just kind of did my own thing. It wasn't talked about. It was known, but it wasn't something that was okay to talk about, even amongst your teammates. You didn't know who you could trust to talk about these things. And it wasn't until the end of my junior year, spring semester, an article had finally come out from a Utah State mom talking, I want to say it was Outkick, about how there was a man on the San Jose State women's volleyball team. And that was the first time that it kind of hit media and people in the public were finding out about it. And so they called a team meeting and we were like, okay, we're finally gonna get answers. Like everyone already knows about it, but we're finally gonna get answers. Blair's kicked off the team. We're gonna finally be able to talk about this issue that everyone always knew. It was always an elephant in the room, and figure out how this is gonna be handled from here on. And so we get to practice. It's before practice time starts, and compliance is in there, the AD's in there, there's media personnel and all of our coaching staff. Blair is also in there, and my entire team. And so they start talking, and the media lady, her name was Michelle, just goes on, and all she says is, so an article came out, we're handling it, there's no need to tell your family and friends about it. It hasn't hit major news sources yet, so not a lot of people are gonna know about it anyways. It's really not that big of a deal. So y'all don't need to worry about it, we're handling it, and if anyone asks about it, just tell them to come to us. And then they're like, okay, now go practice for 3 hours. And we all sat there, and they were like, any questions? And everyone was silent. I mean, you don't know how to respond to that. You think you're going into a situation where you're gonna get all these answers and support from these people that you're supposed to trust. All of your parents have sent you to these people to trust, help raise you still a little bit at this time. We're still young ladies. And we were just baffled at the fact like, oh, okay, they're not here to help us. They're here to help the one person that shouldn't be here. So we go to practice, and then school ends for that year, and we go home for summer, and myself and another teammate had been selected to go to an all-star team with 11 other girls in the conference to play in Europe for 2 weeks. And we land, and we're all in this big van, all these girls. There's probably 1 or 2 girls from each team in our conference, the Mountain West Conference. And it's kind of silent at first. No one really knows each other. And I think the first thing that was said when we get in the van, a girl from Fresno State turns around and she just looks at me and my other teammate and she was like, can we ask about it? And we were like, yeah, I don't care, I'll tell you anything. And so all of them were like, so he got kicked off the team, right? Like he's not there anymore, we don't have to deal with that. And we were like, no, he's still on the team. And then that's when it kind of starts unfolding. We're there for 2 weeks. It's a major topic, obviously. And they start talking about how their teams have already started to decide to forfeit against us. Their star players aren't gonna play against us when we come there. Their coaches don't wanna play against us. And so these are obviously all red flags. Like, this is my last season ever playing volleyball. I only have so many games. Let's bring this up to our head coach when we get back. And I was still weary on what we could talk about on this topic. It was so fresh being out and being able to talk about it. So we get back to school and we have a meeting with my head coach and one of our assistants, and it's me and this other girl who are both captains on the team, and we tell him all of the things that we'd been hearing. And that's when he was saying, okay, like we'll reach out to these coaches, we'll figure out what's going on, and I'll get to the bottom of this, everything's gonna be okay. And I asked him very bluntly, I said, well, when does it get to the point that we just play this game as women and get rid of the one person that's causing all of these issues? And that is, that is when he just cursed me out. He went ballistic. And so that was when I truly knew, okay, this isn't something that's okay to talk about yet or ever with these people. They're not here to support us. Once again, this just solidified it for me. And so as we went on, things just kept getting worse. Teams slowly started forfeiting against us, which all the power to those women. I mean, the stance that takes for them to do that, even the University of Nevada, they didn't even have their coaching staff's support to do so, and they just decided not to show up. So that's an amazing thing in itself. I mean, the power that it took for those ladies to do that is amazing. But it was also taking some of our chances away from playing. I mean, we had, I think, 12 forfeits total that season from teams not wanting to play against us. And this is the last time I'm ever getting to play this sport. Multiple girls on my team. And for anyone, it doesn't matter how old you are, you have 4 years to play collegiate sports. You have pushed your entire life to get to this point and reach this level of volleyball. It is every little girl's dream, and we made it, and it got ruined for us. And this entire time, I just knew this wasn't okay, and I decided to join a lawsuit against the NCAA with an organization called Icons, and Riley Gaines kind of works in it a lot. She's kind of the big face of it. I'm sure y'all all know who she is. We just heard her a few minutes ago. And I knew I needed to tell the coaching staff that I was gonna do so before it opened to the public. And in my head, I was like, okay, everyone else's face on this lawsuit, there's 17 other women. Besides Riley, it goes on the website, and then no one really knows about it, and I'll have to show up in court one day, and that's it. And little did I know, naively, the next day I wake up, and I have a teammate send me an article. This is hours after I've joined the lawsuit, that one of Blair Fleming's teammates is outing him and is being such a bigot and hateful and all of these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then that's when the meetings with the school, with the entire team, or just me one-on-one, kept getting more constant and more frequent, and starting to be threatening towards me or the entire team, saying if we kept speaking out, or if anyone was commenting to any public news or anyone, that our scholarships could be in jeopardy. We don't care if you're buddy with Riley Gaines. She's not part of an institution anymore. You are. You signed a contract, or here's a therapist that you can go speak to because you're the one that's mentally ill, not the man dressing up as a woman in the room that's having to play at a higher level than any of us ever could dream of. And so that's when things just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and it ruined the game for me. I was traumatized. I had the choice to show who I want, what I want, when I want, taken away from me because I unknowingly was living and sharing a safe space in a locker room and showers on away trips with a man that I didn't even know about, and the school chose to hide from us and still support the fact that they hid it from us. It's something that you never recover from. I mean, just because I was the only one that joined the lawsuits, all of these other women on my team, they all agreed with what I was doing, but yet, even though I was doing it, they were still too terrified to talk about it. Some of them agreed with me and were still too scared to be associated with me because they were scared of the repercussions, because we would show up every single day getting gaslit and manipulated into the fact that their scholarships could get pulled and that no other school would want them if they tried to transfer because they're not a good teammate and a good team player. And so it just goes to say that the things that you want to stand for, you should, and you always should, especially on your Christian values, because this should just be the basis of life. Like, you shouldn't, I was just talking to Maze about this backstage, you shouldn't have to be fighting for these things. I mean, it's crazy that there's probably so many other bigger issues that we could be talking about, and these are the biggest issues we have. And it's the bare minimum of life and normalcy. So going through all of that, like, I was a shell of myself. I had to leave and take a year off of school. And it's just, the reason all of us are doing this is so no other young lady has to go through what I went through or my entire team did.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your work and bravery. Now, Kim, your daughter is over 1,000 miles away in California, and you find out about the situation that's happening to her, that she's in danger. And instead of the university supporting her, instead of her coaches supporting her, they instead actually punish her for speaking out and protecting her own safety. Can you talk about, how, when you first found out about the situation, and then as a mother, how did you navigate this difficulty?
It was actually terrifying. We felt helpless being in Texas and Brooke being in California. Helpless is probably the biggest word at the time that I felt. At first, Todd Kress, the head volleyball coach at San Jose, he told Brooke, I'm not going to take sides. I'm going to be, supporting you, supporting Blair, Braden, the man. And that turned very quickly. And he was there only to support Blair and only to support his LGBTQ community. We knew that Brooke had absolutely no support there except for Melissa Beatty-Smoose, who was the assistant coach, who eventually got fired. Well, as they say, I guess her contract officially wasn't renewed, but she was the only person that stood up for Brooke. She was literally the only person, and she spoke out. And because she filed a Title IX complaint against the school, they found a way to get rid of her. And the situation for Brooke got much worse at San Jose after Melissa left. It was a horrible time. And y'all excuse me for reading a little bit. I'm not a seasoned speaker like these two are.
You're doing great.
Also, the school started having, like Brooke had mentioned, meeting after meeting after meeting. They were literally not even having practices at one point because it was the priority to have the meetings over the meetings about Blair, the man on the team, and protecting Blair. So those meetings became a priority, and that's all they said was, you know, it's not your story to tell. It's, you know, protecting Blair. It was just absolutely mind-boggling how the school did this. As a mom, I really started to panic. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I basically went into fight or flight mode. At one point, I received an email from Melissa Batty Smoose. This was actually before she got fired. Todd, the head coach, had copied her on this email before their relationship went sour. And in the email, he had sent an email to a lawyer to find out how he could get Brooke kicked off the team. And this was her head coach that was supposed to be supporting her. And it was absolutely horrendous. Anyway, I cried myself to sleep many nights. As much as I wanted for Brooke to pack it up and move home, I knew God had her there for a reason. To fight for truth, to fight for biblical truth, that a man is not a woman, and that a man should not be on a women's NCAA college volleyball team. It was honestly the hardest thing so far that our family has ever been through. And at this point, Brooke is a lot better. I can tell she was a shell of herself when she came home in December for Christmas and then eventually decided to stay home. We were letting her decide. We were gonna let her decide if she wanted to finish school there. She ended up staying home, but to this day, she still isn't sleeping well. So if you guys can pray for her sleep, that would be amazing. But yeah, it was pretty traumatizing.
Yeah, oh, I can imagine. Senator Middleton, in your work, you got to meet, Brooke and Kim and so many other people, young women even in Austin and Texas. You got to meet Riley Gaines. How important and essential is it to have young athletes and young women and just young victims, come forward, especially for hearings?
I think of a Sam Houston quote, which you are definitely of the same spirit and cut from the same cloth of do right and risk the consequences. And that's what you've done. And somebody's got to be the first to stand up and fight back because there's so many others that have followed behind you. And, you hear the story a lot where Brooke has been so courageous in her testimony in committee. You heard similar things from Riley Gaines where you had teammates come to you and say, I agree, but I'm afraid of an adverse action. I'm afraid they're going to take away my scholarship or kick me out of school. Turns out they were right because they went after you for doing what was right. But because of that boldness of your conviction, of your Christian faith, we're winning this fight. So thank you. And God bless you. And we all have to have that boldness because, my goodness, was this November 2024 election not a mandate on boldness in government, right? At every level, not just the White House, all the way down to the state legislature, city council, and school board members. We've got a lot of bold Christian conservative school board members right here. Andrew is one of them. We have others as well. We need those bold Christian conservatives at every single level because think about what we're up against here. So the men and women's dresses, so that tells you we're on the right side of it, right? The men and women's dresses opposed to this bill, the Women's Privacy Act. It's not hard to figure out you're on the right side when you see a man in a makeup and a dress coming to say the bill is a bad bill, that you're on the correct side of history and correct moral side. But not only that, look, they're against other things too. So they were against the Save Women's Sports Act. They were against my bill that put prayer back into our public schools and puts God back into government and rights those wrongs that the atheists perpetrated on us decades ago. We're taking that ground back in Texas. But not only that, they were against the school choice bill, which gives parents the chance at a Christian education. They were also against legislation that will hold predators accountable for showing pornographic and obscene materials to children. That was a bill that I passed this session. And that just reaffirms that this is a spiritual battle that we are in. And we are on the right side of it, and we have to persist. And I'll tell you, they will fight back. Death threats against me. I'm sure they've threatened Brooke. And actually this session, I had a special session, I had a protest dedicated to me in the Texas Capitol Rotunda. They had these ugly green signs with my face on it and X's through my eyes. And they called me the bathroom bigot. That's what they call me. Why? Because I don't think a man should go in my little girl's shower or locker room, right? And that shows you also that we are defeating them, that they are losing. And they're losing because they're in a war against common sense and also a war against God. They're in a war against God. Because if they're against bills that are defining man and woman, like the What is a Woman Act, Ellen Troxclair, I sponsored that in the Senate, basic biological truths, these are basic biblical truths that we're putting into law. And they know that's a threat to them because their plan was to make government like God. And we all know there is only one God above, and God we trust.
Amen. Thank you so much for your courage. A lot of things have happened, since then, in this movement. How was it to meet? Actually, I wanted to go back to your activism at the Capitol. So the happy part of this story is that you were able to share your story, even though it was a very difficult one, with the Texas legislature. And we were able to take you and your mom and even your dad, Paul, to Senator Middleton's office, but also I think Senator Paxton's office, Senator Parker's office. I believe you were able to meet the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick. We were able to go to Governor Abbott's office. But it was an experience to be able to share your story. Have you ever testified at the Capitol before?
I have actually. I was honored enough to be invited up to the Capitol with Texas Values, who obviously was putting their blood, sweat, and tears getting this bill passed with Mays Middleton. And so I got to sit up there, and I think it was about 3 minutes of getting to testify for that Safety Act. And I will say, it was probably the hardest thing I've had to do yet. Because I'm not just sitting up there trying to kind of go over the story and let y'all know what was going on, but we were trying to tug the hearts of these people to really get this bill passed, and they needed to know how vulgar and how traumatizing this scenario was for anyone. And so I really went up there, and so did my mother, and we really just poured out to them on everything we truly went through and the effects it had on us. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was just like that little bit hopefully was able to help so much, and being able to help Middleton pass that bill, which he did, and it's amazing the things he's doing. And so yes, it was amazing getting to experience that and getting to meet so many people and spread the awareness of what needs to be talked about. Because again, it is still so terrifying for so many to talk about it. It's something that they don't want you talking about. And so you have to be able to go up there and tell people your story, no matter how hard it is, because it will eventually, hopefully, God bless, make a change.
Well, you did an excellent job, even if it was, difficult, but if you found it difficult, but you did an excellent job, and we're so thankful for you coming those multiple times, to the state capitol, because we had multiple times that the bill was considered. A lot has happened since then. You've testified at the Capitol. You're involved in a lawsuit with Riley Gaines. Have you met her and been able to connect with her, and how was that?
Yes, I actually had the honor of being able to go up to Nashville recently, and she did a collab with XXXY, who we all kind of get to work with every once in a while. And they're an amazing brand if anyone ever wants to go look at them. But
and they're in the back on our merch table.
If you want to go buy something, they're back there. But no, she's amazing. I mean, all of the things that she's been able to do, but also just being able to be in a scenario, just getting to talk with her as a human to human. and realizing like these people are just regular human beings that went through something terrible. But it's amazing to be able to see people like her do the things that she does, because I mean, at the end of the day, she was a person who gave me the courage to do what I did. I mean, believe me, when I was approached to join the lawsuit, I was absolutely terrified. And it was almost like a, okay, well, 3, 2, 1, make a decision type of thing. I had to sit on it for a while. But no, it was amazing getting to meet with her and getting to talk about the things that she does. And again, just being able to catch up with someone that's gone through similar things as you and understands the things you've been through is amazing.
Yeah, that's great. And Kim, you know, you follow things on social media and the regular media, and you've seen Riley Gaines and even Icons, our good friend Kim and Marshy from Icons, and other young ladies in the news talking about what happened to them. You know, how did that give you more confidence that Brooke would not be standing alone if she spoke out? And how has this encouraged you even to be more vocal on social media and, you know, talk about the issue at the Texas Capitol?
So initially, even before Brooke went to San Jose State, I knew who Riley was. I didn't know a ton about her, but I knew who she was and her entire story. And I knew that she was in a lawsuit against the NCAA for the swim and dive championship, allowing Will Thomas. And I also knew at the time, before Brooke went to San Jose, that there was a male player that was playing in juniors club volleyball that nobody seemed to be talking about. It was kind of like happened with Blair. It was all hiding in the background, but had already been recruited and committed to the University of Washington. So I had put this all over my social media. I worried at the time a little bit, but it was just so black and white to me. Like you guys always say, it was just so black and white. You know, when you're speaking up for truth and posting truth, it's like, this shouldn't be hard to do, you know? Common sense, yeah. At the time, I didn't know anything about Icons. Once we met Marshy Smith and Kim Jones of Icons, I knew Brooke wouldn't be alone. They, Riley and Bill Bach, Brooke's lawyer, have been nothing short of heaven sent. Bill is one amazing Christian man, and Riley, along with the other athletes involved in the lawsuit, have given Brooke so much confidence and encouragement to keep speaking truth and not to be scared. Riley, Marshy, Kim told Brooke to just have faith in God, speak truth, and you will be good. I don't know that I believed that in the beginning, but I was going with it. The more Brooke spoke out, the more she began to realize, wait a minute, they really can't do anything to me. Look, nothing's happening. I'm not getting kicked off the team. I'm not, you know, of course you have the online bullying and you have the crazies at the university. But besides that, she was good. The stance that Riley initially took on the issue really encouraged me to start speaking out more about the men and women's sports issue. I have lost friends and acquaintances over this. It's hard sometimes. I feel myself getting emotional about it because I think at heart, I'm a peacemaker personality. So sometimes I think about those people and I'm like, well, I guess they just really weren't my friends in the first place. You know, when they can't even admit, you know, the truth of the, you know, common sense black and white issue. So I move on, I tread forward, you know, I pray every day about it. And I know what I'm doing. I feel God leading me towards this. Like this is gonna be your thing along with Brooke's thing. At first, I really was reluctant to speak out. I would post things, but I was a little reluctant to speak out because I'm like, this is Brooke's story. This is not my story. I want her to be able to tell her story. But, you know, I came to the realization that, you know, having a parent's perspective is a good thing because you are back at home having sleepless nights, having panic attacks, you know, you're in Texas and she's in California. So it was really hard, but you know, it's all worth it and God is leading me through.
Yes, thank you so much. And I appreciate even how you're active, being bold and posting things on social media yourself about your time at the Capitol, but also news. Sometimes you're someone who's alerting me about what's happening, like the recent NCAA, Kate lawsuit moving forward now. So we're very happy about that. Jonathan Saenz, our president, was in the courtroom when you and Brooke were testifying for the first hearing on that. So we're very happy that that lawsuit is now moving forward, and hopefully the NCAA will be held accountable because they keep changing their rules. They keep changing, maneuvering, trying to say they're protecting women, but not really. So hopefully we can get a clear answer in that lawsuit, and just so happy that you all were there in the courtroom telling your story and fighting on that issue.
If I could mention one thing too, also Trump's Department of Education is doing an internal investigation on San Jose State University. And we are praying that they are held accountable.
That's great. That's excellent news. Senator Middleton, some may say, and actually I think all news stories are saying this, that the Texas Women's Privacy Act that was signed on Monday is the strongest of this type of law in the nation. How important was it for you to get it done, but also to have some real strength to this law? Because we have some provisions in there that are stronger than some other states. And what has it been like for you as a father to pass this bill?
Well, thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Look, this is for all the daughters and future daughters of our great state. That's why this is so important, because we know we don't have another Texas to move to. This is it. This is why we have to get this right here. And, it's just common sense, right? I mean, a man should not be in a woman's restroom, locker room, shower, family violence shelter, prison unit. I mean, can you believe that they were arguing that a man should be in a woman's family violence shelter, right? I mean, how is that keeping anyone safe, by the way? And I wanted to make sure, and it was persistence, right? So when you show up to the fight, you finish it in Texas. And it took us a lot of years to get this into law. It started in 2017. And finally, in the second called special session, I was very grateful for Governor Abbott for adding it to the call, and Lieutenant Governor Patrick for making it a priority of his as well. But I wanted to make sure that we had the strongest Women's Privacy Act in America with teeth. I don't like laws that don't have any teeth. I want enforcement, right? Enforcement is incredibly important in this, and it's a $125,000 per day penalty if you violate this. And not only that, it's loser pay. So when the radical left, like the ACLU or Civil Rights Project or Beto or any other lunatic off the shelf decides to sue to try to block this, guess what? They have to pay the state's legal fees. It's one-way fee shifting. And not only that, state courts don't even have jurisdiction to hear it, right? So we're not gonna get hung up in Travis County, where you hear that there's a challenge that's been brought in Travis County. No, we could literally bankrupt some of these radical left groups that are going after these common sense laws that we know that we all need in this state. And look, as a husband, as a dad, this is what we have to keep our families safe in this state. We have to have laws like this. And it is not an easy fight. But our faith doesn't say that. It doesn't say every fight's gonna be easy, but it does say this, that all things are possible with God.
All right, we do have a little extra time, so I just wanted to, see if each of you have like a closing statement or an encouraging message for the crowd that you would like to share.
I mean, just kind of going off what Ms. Middleton just said was, like, you're doing this for the next generation and for your daughters. And I feel like anyone I've spoken to who has been a part of this fight personally, they're never talking about, I'm doing this for myself, and it's very hateful way of they deserve what they get. It's always, every single time I've talked to Peyton McNabb, Caitlin Wheeler, all of these women, and they're always saying, I'm doing this because I know if I sit down in a few years and I have a daughter on that court and there's a man on the other side, I would be sick to my stomach that I could have done something and I didn't. And again, that is why it is so important that no matter what, you stand up and you say something when you can, and you always have a right to do so. Because if we don't, it doesn't matter if you've experienced it or not, nothing's gonna change. And there's just gonna be more and more girls who are traumatized the way I was, the way so many others have been. And sadly, it's growing and more happening. I was a part of the collegiate level where it was happening, but I see every day it's happening more and more at the high school level. I coach girls club volleyball, and having to see my 13-year-old girls go up against a boy. It is absolutely absurd and it's disgusting. So that is why you have to stand up and make a change, because otherwise you're just gonna keep seeing more and more girls walking away from a sport that they used to love, but traumatized from it. Yes.
Thank you so much. All right, Senator Middleton.
Well, look, I am more encouraged than ever. This great revival that's occurring in our great state and nation right now, that of course Charlie Kirk inspired countless, that next generation to lead them to Christ. There's no higher calling than that, to lead this next generation to a Christian faith. But this is a fight for biblical values in government. That's what this comes down to. And the reason why I know that we're gonna win that fight is we have the conviction in our heart and the other side does not. And that is why at the end of the day, I know we're gonna win these fights, like prayer in public school, the 10 commandments on the wall of every classroom, making sure that no one is ever targeted because of their faith. I mean, that's something that we saw this week or last week, where we had teachers that were saying that somehow Charlie Kirk had it coming, right? Outrageous. Every single one of them should be fired. Their teaching certificate revoked. They should be put on a do not hire registry and never be allowed around children again in this state. But that's how I know we're winning this fight, thanks to the men and women in this room. And we all know what is a woman's not a trick question, by the way, and to point that out. But you are the reason. You are the tip of the spear. You're the one that shows up. And we're gonna win because of that conviction of your faith. So God bless you.
All right, if Kim doesn't have, do you have something to share or?
Yes, just something real quick. I just wanna say to Senator Middleton, thank you for everything that you do, for standing up for, as you always say, common sense. That's the way that I have always looked at it, and that is what, honestly, as hard as this has been, what makes it easy. You know, you're standing up for biblical truth, and we just appreciate that.
All right, before we end the panel, I did want to
Can I say real quick? I wanted
sure.
to add, I wanted to say real quick that how proud I am of Brooke, my daughter. And I don't tell her that very often. I say I love her, I'm proud of her, but I know sometimes she gets really tired of talking about all of this stuff. You know, she loves it when she's here and she's in the mode and she's doing it, but sometimes it's hard to talk about. But I am so proud of you. I couldn't be more proud of you. And just always know that God is on your side.
Well, that's perfect. That's wonderful, because before we ended the panel, I wanted to recognize someone who's not on stage, but who's in the room and has been very critical in every step of the way. He's been, the driver, the protector, and everything in this movement, and that is Brooke's father. And so just wanted to recognize him before the panel.
Stand up. Come on, Dad.
So if you would like, could you just, talk about how important it has been, to have your father's support in this movement as well?
I don't think I could have done it without him or my mother, but it was honestly at the beginning the most encouraging thing for them to just say, I know this is scary, and we would never force you to do something that you think is way too far out of your comfort zone and wheelhouse, but we do think this is something amazing that you could do. And they're like, either way, we still love you and we're here to support you. But my dad, he was the person that I was able to call every single morning before I had to walk into that gym and have to put a brave face on for those 16 other women who were too scared to do anything, and be that smile that they could have and come and talk to every single day. And then coming home and just feeling broken and shattered and have someone to talk to about it. Because again, I'm 1,000 miles away. There's not a single person out there with me that I could talk to about it. And so he was really that person that I was able to just call up and just break down and release all of the frustration and anger that I had every single day. And so I couldn't have done it without him, and just being able to hear me and listen to me and watch me cry half the time, but he was there and ready to support and be that shoulder I could cry on every single day. So thank you so much. Love you.
All right, everyone. Wasn't this a great panel? Let's give them a round of applause.